Hi, this is Zena Harris.
And I'm Mark Rabin.
Welcome to the tie-in. It is
Mr.
an early morning on
Mhm.
Wednesday. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Zena.
Yeah,
Back in action.
back in action. We've had a bit of a whirlwind, few weeks,
Totally.
but
And
it's
it's peak summer now. This is what I
yeah,
call peak summer.
peak
Just
summer.
like
Yeah,
sleep with the fan on and no sheets. That's it. That's how it goes.
totally, totally. Yeah, we're having a bit of a hot spell. Not probably not as bad, gosh, as the rest of the
No, it's not
US for
humid.
sure. And yeah, so I mean, honestly, then we live in a, pretty special corner of the world, I
Yeah. Well,
think.
it was like when we went to Toronto last week, it
Hmm.
was like being in the Caribbean or something. It was
Oh,
just so
yeah.
humid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Here
it
it's
was
like,
fine though.
yeah, it gets hot. It gets hot here, but I mean, it's like Vancouver. It's always a cool breeze, and at night it's not
Hmm.
even that hot.
Yeah.
But I've been taking it all in. Been
Oh,
biking in the mountains, swimming in lakes and
totally.
rivers, and like this is it. This is peak summer.
Totally, totally. I went running in Point Defiance Park on the weekend and then went out to Owen Beach, a beach here in Tacoma, and just went right into the water. It was so great. It was so great. I mean, just
Yeah,
lovely.
yeah.
So,
It's hard to do any work of any kind. That's the only problem. Just
yeah.
just want to
Well,
like run into the mountains and come back in August.
yeah. Well, I want to say that, but I've been running pretty hot here lately, and there's just so much going on and being pulled in a lot of different directions that it's kind of like, I have to remind myself to focus, prioritize all the stuff in and around this loveliness around, this weather and
Hmm.
everything, and hearing about people's vacations to wonderful places. And I'm just like, I got to go to the Coldplay concert,
Yeah, exactly.
which is wonderful. But I'm like, oh, I'm taking it where I can get it.
Totally. I mean, for me, my summers feel so much easier compared to the previous years where when I was doing portable electric, like literally when I was in the early days, I was doing all the rentals as well and
Oh,
helping with
yeah.
that. So every single weekend was doing rental deployments and things like that. And then I was working during the week. And then like literally it was just like 247 the whole summer.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
this is this is a dream.
Well, you're living it up. Okay. Okay, fine.
Compared to that. However, there's still work to be done. And I'm still
Yeah.
sitting here in my apartment sweating right now.
Yeah.
And it's
I'm
nine
in
o'clock.
I'm in the basement, so I mean I've got that going for me. So,
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I'm headed to the island actually to this is my summer of checking out new festivals and new community gatherings.
hmm.
And so I'm going to check out Pachina Bay. And
Oh,
it's in Pacific Rim National Park, I think.
okay.
It's kind of near Tofino, Eucalypt in that neck of the woods, but it's
Hmm.
like remote, super remote. And it's this, I don't know, I think it's 1,000 person music event on a beach. They've got beach
Wow.
stages. I've heard lots about it, and I've got a good friend of mine who's just like, "We got a ticket for you. Let's go." And I was like, "All right, I'm doing it. Let's go." But
It's a
but
bit
it
of a
involves like
hike.
ferries and
Yeah.
driving, and then this, and then it's like it's far and like dirt roads. So I don't know what to expect, but I'm going in, and we're
You gotta
going in.
take your pop-up solar panel and battery just in case.
Yeah. Nah,
You
I'm just
never
gonna bring some
know.
battery packs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
rolling light.
Well, take some photos. I'd love to see what that setup
Yeah,
looks like, on the beach. How cool.
yeah. It's like one of those huge beaches. I don't know if you've been to Tofino or not, but
Oh,
it's the
yeah.
same
Love it.
beaches, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, they're just
Hmm.
incredible. Says
Love
BC in the
Tofino.
summer. Oh my God, this place.
Yeah. Love Tofino. It's like one of the best surf spots, and the waves are great, constant. And you get like, great surf instructors if you want one. We were coached once by like the female Canadian, national champion. And I was like, really? This is awesome. So love that place.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I haven't been back to that neck of the woods in like 20 years, it feels like. So I don't know.
Oh,
I
oh,
know.
well, yeah, I mean, it's grown a little bit. So
I
there's
mean,
some
but
cool
this
spots.
everything's crazy. Like I have a friend who 2 days ago was telling me that she was up in Desolate Sound on a boat, and for like an hour, like a whale came and like humpback whale came and like hung out with a boat. It wasn't even it wasn't a whale watching boat or anything. It was just like,
Wow.
yeah, this like they just had this like very intimate connection with this whale who was like hanging around the boat, like, like really they could touch it. If they,
Oh my gosh, that's
I
super
know.
special. Like,
Yeah. I know.
wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
So
no,
there you
it's
go.
cool. Last time I went out there, on the ferry, we saw humpback whales jump out of the water. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Wow. Crazy
pretty
land.
cool spot. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That's it. Not too much going on
no,
in the dog days of summer here.
totally, totally. We hope everyone else around the world is enjoying your summer or winter, wherever you are.
Mm-hmm.
And, keep it
Yeah.
up out there. Keep it up. Thank you for getting in touch with us and liking and subscribing. We really, really appreciate it. And do, share this with a friend. Share it with your colleagues. There's some good insight coming out of these interviews. So,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got some good ones coming up. We're excited for
Totally.
it.
Yeah.
So, see you
Thanks.
soon.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Tie-In. Today, we're speaking with Mo Dhaliwal, and I've had the pleasure of becoming friends with Mo over the last many months here. And yeah, looking forward to chatting with you. Mo has over 2 decades of experience in the technology sector, including software development and internet marketing from Silicon Valley to Vancouver, BC. He's a patron of the arts and producer of cultural events and has worked to shatter barriers between people and encourage cross-cultural understanding, most notably through the creation of the Vancouver International Bhangra Celebration Society. He's also had the opportunity to collaborate with creative minds across the country and in North America in creating moving experiences for clients and community. He is the founder and CEO of Skyrocket Digital and has driven significant digital transformations, delivering innovative brand and tech solutions to global clients. And you also have a podcast called High Agency that I was recently on that dropped.
Thank you guys
Yeah.
so much for having me on. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, Mo, it's lovely to meet you. Mark's told me a bit about you, so I'm looking forward to the conversation. Welcome to our little podcast, The Tie-In. So I guess to kick it off, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, about your journey, to working in the tech sector and, events, creative economy, and otherwise.
hmm Yeah, I mean, looking back, it all looks quite interesting and maybe even rational. It looked like, there was a rational, knowledgeable person that made these forward-looking decisions. Uh, but at the time, from where my career kind of began out of school till now, I can tell you that for the most pivotal moments, I was just kind of tripping and stumbling forward, trying to grasp onto the next thing. Um, I went to school for business administration because, family influence and whatnot. It was like that felt like the quote unquote right thing to do.
Hmm.
The first signal should have been that I had done 4 years of electives in the first 2 years, like all my Englishes, anthropologies, and philosophy courses up to like third and fourth levels were done and over, right? And then all I had left after that was like, probability, statistics, financial accounting, cost accounting, etc. And it got very, very dry and boring. But throughout all of this, I had held on to this hobby of coding, and not through a software engineering sense, but just being what we used to call back then, script kiddies, right? People that knew just enough Perl or PHP to make little websites or make little automations and scripts that would do things automatically. And lo and behold, in the early 2000s, that turned into a career. And that remained my career for the better part of 10 years. And yes, that took me out to Silicon Valley. That was a brief period for maybe 2 years. But beyond that, it had me kind of connecting with companies and clients all over the place, the country and the world, really. But the interesting moment, I think, in my life was actually in the mid 2000s because that technology industry, as much as it was booming and bustling and all the rest of it, it was also kind of exploitative, right? It was, there's developers working at, some massive software development firms where it was like a borderline, human rights violation, what they were being put through and the long hours and the, at the time, kind of legendary stories of people sleeping under their desks and stuff. It's like none of that's really cool, right? None of that's sustainable. None of that's really, paying homage to anybody's humanity. So I kind of really burned out of it. Like I just, after a few years of just ridiculous hours and deadlines and not seeing my friends or family much, I just kind of quit one day. And then went through this period of like, oof, I want to do something like kind of fun and like kind of healing almost. And I started a Bhangra festival, right? The Vancouver International Bhangra Celebration. And that was at the time just more of a lark than anything. Wanted to, here back here in Vancouver, create a bit of a sense of belonging for myself, do something fun and interesting. And that itself turned into a 10-year journey as a volunteer
Mm.
board member. And the
Mhm.
tail end of that is when we actually started Skyrocket as a digital agency.
Um, just to double click on the Bhangra Festival. So, I mean, obviously, there's a huge community here in Vancouver. Did you start to incubate that while you were down in the Valley area? What was the sort of genesis of that? And then also, how big are we talking here? Because this is truly, I mean, this is entertainment as we look at it. We do a lot of
Mhm.
talk to a lot of folks about live event production and the ups and downs of that.
Yeah. So how to answer that, it's actually interesting the way you put it, the idea of incubation. I think the festival, I don't think I incubated it. I think it was kind of incubating inside me without me knowing. Because the amazing thing about being in San Francisco back then was that there was this like street level diversity that was amazing. So as a young person in the city, I loved going out. I loved going out to live music and clubs and whatnot. So it was a very, work hard, party hard culture. And what I would see in the scene there was just this diversity, right? Whether it was, clubs like Ruby Sky or um, Harry Denton had this. It was like a 34th floor of this hotel, this like amazing club that on Wednesday nights would kind of do like an international night. There was, El Rio in the Castro district, these really interesting places where you would go and experience music from all around the world. And it was a real melting pot sort of moment for me in being immersed in that because we'd be, out hanging out with people, and in the middle of all of it, you would hear Punjabi music and Bhangra music and Bollywood tunes come on just because it's good music, right? It wasn't because there was some, special tonight's ethnic night or something like that going on. It was just the DJs appreciated the music, so they'd play it. And it blew my mind, right? Because as a, 21, 22-year-old, it was like, wow, you can do that? You can just play your music to people
Yeah.
that might not understand the lyrics and they can just dance because the beat's good. Like that's the thing.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's kind of what I brought back with me, right? And Vancouver, you know, like maybe less so these days, but back then, very provincial sort of vibe. It was no real ethnic diversity. It was white people, Asians, and brown people, right? South Asians. And there was like these kind of three poles going on. And so I was like, man, it is so much more beautiful when the space is complicated because you can find room for yourself. There's all sorts of belonging you can find. And we need to complicate the idea of diversity in Vancouver a bit. And so that
Mm,
was actually kind of the genesis of the festival. It was like, I want to make this place look like that weird melting pot that just happens to flow and ebb with like all these different cultures.
I love it. And just give us a last sort of thing on scope and scale. Like we're talking 5,000, 10,000 people.
Oh yeah, I mean our first year's event was 1,700. It was at this what was back then the Center for Performing Arts. And then very quickly and ambitiously, this is a little bit of my tech background coming in, right? It was like scale quick. Like
Yeah.
we got product market fit. Oh my God, let's scale, right?
Yeah.
So year two, it turned into an open air festival, and we sold out the Queen Elizabeth Theater, so the indoor component. It was like 2,600 seats we
Wow.
sold out,
Whoa.
and the public component had a few thousand. And then our numbers for the ensuing years basically fluctuated between like, 8 and 15,000, right? There was years that were heavy, so the outdoor component would bring in a few thousand people a day, plus 2,500 people in an indoor venue somewhere. And then there's also leaner years, right, where it was, maybe we scratched 5,000 if we really added up to 10 days in every single venue. But the live component was definitely it. And that's also where I started to get an appreciation, frankly, for event production, right?
Hmm.
Because I wanted to see the thing happen. And then we kind of went backwards and be like, okay, how does that happen? And we, try to connect the dots. And I think that level of naivety was kind of helpful in a way as well, because we picked some really stupid locations to do events in. And so we would be like master planning and building things up from the ground up, right? Like I mean, nobody would know this. It was, what, like 17 years ago now, 16, 17 years ago now. But there's a massive, iconic Punjabi artist named Malkeet Singh. And right here in Gastown in Vancouver, there's a underground sort of venue that back then was a museum exhibition space called Storium.
Mm.
And Storium had just gone under. And so there was this like 30,000-foot cavern
Wow.
underneath Water and Cordova streets. And we were looking for an event venue as an after party for our festival. So I contacted the city and I got them to rent us this like, abandoned property almost for like, practically no money.
Whoa.
But yeah, but in exchange we had to build it from the ground up, meaning that the alley was filled with generators. We had to,
Mm.
like, if somebody hung up their coat on a coat check, that means we rented the hangars and brought them from somewhere. Like ice, water, lighting. Like
Yeah,
we had,
everything.
yeah, we had to like, turn this empty space into a nightclub for the night. And that was when I think, started getting an appreciation for what these master planned events actually look
Yeah.
like, right? And if I'm being frank, like I'm feeling a little disingenuous about talking about this on the tie-in because I know there's a real climate intersection here, and I would be lying if I said that that was ever on our radar or the urgency of these massive events would be that like we didn't give a shit, and it's unfortunate, right? So we're talking like, oh my God, like styrofoam cups, like those red solo things,
Oh yeah.
you know, smoky ass alley with like just all the diesel you could ever want to ever inhale, right? Um,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate, but it was just the nature of it was because the event, the budget, we allowed for certain things, and it just wasn't even in the consciousness to worry about what's the impact of this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just so you know, I mean, there's still, you still go to Coachella and there's still like hundreds of diesel generators. I mean, it's not,
Yeah, that doesn't make me feel better necessarily, but I get it. Yeah.
right.
But it's all an evolution, right? Because yeah, now you have a realization, but like none of us did, in the beginning. We all had to come and experience and learn and figure out how to, you know, put that battery, in a cool place, like it's all an evolution. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, and
And
I'm oh, go ahead.
not a lot of options either, right? Because when it came
Hmm.
to like our outdoor events, like we did a bunch of stuff in Vancouver Civic Plaza, and I'm forgetting the company's name, but there's like one company that will rent you these kind of big, what they call silent generators, which just means that it is a really loud hum rather than
Yeah.
chugging.
Yeah.
Um, and they were the ones that had like the certificates, the engineering or whatnot, that they were kind of approved by the city and for us to get our event permits. So there wasn't really a lot of choices either, right? So if we tried to do things differently, I'm not sure how much appetite there would have been for that because it was like, okay, live event, go rent your stuff from them because we approve of them, and,
Hmm.
and that was it.
Hmm. Hmm. I'm curious, at the top of the conversation, you mentioned, Vancouver having sort of these, kind of three cultural pillars, if you will, or poles. And I'm curious, after doing the event for a few years, what did you notice? Did you complicate things? What was a ripple effect?
I think for a time, and I think sometimes the kind of appreciation for diversity in Vancouver is a little seasonal, where there's kind of the hot thing. And for a number of years, like, Bhangra and Punjabi folk music performance was kind of the hot thing in the mid 2000s.
Hmm.
You couldn't have a corporate event, whether it was like the mining convention or whether it was like some financial institution's AGM, like they couldn't seem to do a corporate event without bringing in like a dance crew as like an interlude and performance. in spaces where it would just make no sense to some extent, but there was a good love and appreciation for it. So that was kind of nice. Um, but I think, the DNA of the city kind of continues to change. Um, and a big part of what actually drove me and I think drove our group back then was this idea that Vancouver was small enough that you can kind of influence its culture. You can actually have a pretty outsized impact on this place, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
London, New York's of the world, like they're pretty fully baked,
Hmm.
right? You're going there to, have that culture seep into you, not the other way around necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So it did feel like we had a good amount of influence on the city back then, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it takes a lot of different vendors and stakeholders and whatnot. And I wanted to, you brought up a term before we came on the call about a shadow economy. Can you like explain that and what you observe in that, maybe in and around events?
Yeah, um so I kind of started really contrasting my own experiences for a while because as much as I was a part of the founding team of the Bunker Festival, during that period, I also joined my first marketing agency like a couple years into it.
Hmm.
And there I was brought in as an account manager, but one of my roles was to actually go out and connect with a lot of people in the arts community. And within a few years of that, I found myself on the board of the Alliance for Arts and Culture. I was on the board of the Vancouver International Jazz Festival for 6 years. I was on Vancouver Opera for 6 years, president of the Vancouver Asian Heritage Month Society for I think a year or two. So all these really random experiences, and what that actually I think cemented for me was an understanding of what is well known and understood as kind of like mainstream society and economies, and all of the stuff that happens in the nooks and crannies in between, where I'm not saying nooks and crannies as in tiny, like, these could be multi-thousand person events, but
Hmm.
because it's a particular section of the Filipino community or a particular section of the Korean or Taiwanese communities, or the Fijian community, or yes, of course, the Punjabi community, that they were kind of off the radar, right? And
Hmm.
so these things, if you add them up, they're huge, right?
Yeah.
But individually, none of them is necessarily, bigger than, I don't know, the Grey Cup or something. But if you look at, for example, Bear Creek Park in Surrey, hosting, any number of commemoration events or sort of open air festivals throughout the year, you're probably looking at 100,000 people that have come through for those events, right? There's a very important, religious occasion for the Sikh community in BC where 3 to 500,000 people will flood the streets in Surrey in this religious procession in April, which is, the month of Baisakhi, right? The harvest season. And these events are probably looked at, again, as gatherings, in and of the community and maybe kind of observed at a distance. But that's a lot of people, that's a lot of production. And that's kind of brewing underneath kind of the surface of what, I think the general population is kind of conscious of. And we even found this when we were working in arts and culture of, cultural production for grants. So when we were working, whether it was municipally, provincially, or federally, even the funding streams and the nature of grant writing was really kind of well suited to Western European art forms, mainstream festivals, that sort of thing. And when you kind of came in with a cultural practice that was just totally not on their radar at all, they didn't have like a frame or they couldn't even understand your thesis, right, of what
Hmm.
you were doing or why. So it took us a long time to get both smarter about using kind of like Western arts language to try to shoehorn ourselves into those spaces a bit, right? But yeah, when you add it up, it's like our big sort of pillar, bedrock arts institutions from art gallery, opera, symphony. Like, every serious city has to have a symphony, right?
Right.
I think if you were to add these up, they'd probably be like just utterly eclipsed
Yeah.
by what the Punjabi, Filipino, Chinese communities do out here in terms of celebration and heritage events for ourselves. And frankly, just pure entertainment, right?
Yeah.
Because, Punjabi music's taking over the world is huge. We have artists coming in and filling Rogers Arena these
For
days.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's different than 20 years ago. Just saying,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, when you add all that up, it's like actually it's kind of, I think the term was shadow economy, probably made a bit more sense 20 years ago. Now it's just massive economy, but do we
Yeah.
recognize it?
Well, I
Right.
mean, it's in just to take that one step further. I mean, yeah, we have these huge, like you said, cultural gatherings. We have 100,000 Coachellas of the world, like 150,000, but really more people are going to local and regional events, community-based events, but also all types of things. I mean, there's so many, even just an example, like the festivals that are going on. There's literally the forests in British Columbia have 200 to 500 person events that are going on literally every weekend everywhere. They're right, and that's creating culture, that's creating community. Like, what are people striving for? What are people looking for? They're looking to feel seen, heard, create community, meet new people, create new alliances, and lead. It's just like, and they're all under the radar.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
and you nailed it right there because like when we started that festival 20 years ago, I would love to say that it was some visionary story of like, oh, we're going to create this institution and that, but I can tell you the instinct was just wanting to connect, wanting to feel like we got a space for ourselves, and that was it, right? Do something beautiful that's entertaining to the eyes and ears, but also you feel a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you take that sort of community building and cultural, I don't know, richness, if you will, into the work that you're doing now?
I think it just gives you a bit of fluency. Um, you know, you become really aware of what you're ignorant to. And so you're able to walk into, I think, like any industry, arena, sector, community with a lot of humility of understanding that there's a lot of things here you probably don't know, right?
Hmm.
Because you run across it yourself all the time of, in mainstream media, just the lack of nuance sometimes and just so much, depth and texture that's missing. So when you have that appreciation, you come from that culture and have been involved in that way, I think you're able to walk into new spaces and come in with the humility and understanding that I know what I don't know. And now I
Hmm.
can listen hard and really perceive and go looking for it.
Hmm. Hmm. No, that's so interesting. I
Yeah.
mean, one of the things I think I I've read this, when researching what you do and everything. But one of the things I think that drew Mark and I together early on, and what we've been trying to think through as we go, and I would love to hear your perspective, is uh, this digital transformation. We've seen evolution in our work in film and TV, for example, in Mark's work with energy and whatnot. We've seen this transformation. We're still grappling with it in a lot of ways on the physical production side of the house and even things like AI and whatnot. Um, I'm curious how you think about it and how you're working within it.
hmm So there's a couple of quotes that I kind of keep at the forefront of my mind that were introduced by various like colleagues over the years, right? One is that um, the future is already here; it's just not evenly distributed.
Mm.
And I just love that quote so much
Hmm.
because and it's true because whether it's some cities in China or whether it's frankly places in the interior of British Columbia, you can see where some things are advanced, some things are lagging, and there's different cultures around this stuff. So you can typically look into a space or an industry and see where there might have been some economic pressure, frankly, that caused the industry or the people to like innovate, right? Or to do things differently, or to even try to figure out how to make more time or do more with less. Um, in BC, because of the various real estate booms and just the entire economy built around that, one of our last industries here to innovate is actually real estate and construction, right?
And throw
Because when you've
forestry in there.
yeah, forestry. Yeah. Oh, forestry. Absolutely. Yeah. When you've spent like decades just making money hand over fist,
Hmm.
in some cases for no reason, like what is your incentive
Yeah.
to get efficient? What is your incentive to say, actually, let's try to look at data or try to tie these things together? So that's one perspective, right? Is that we can look out into the world and see different futures that already exist and know that they're probably going to arrive here, but when are they going to arrive? What's the timing? What's the incentive? And the other one is, I think this one comes out of MIT, but the idea that digital transformation, when it's done well, can turn a caterpillar into a butterfly. But when it's done badly, you're left with like a really fast caterpillar. Um, and and we don't want really fast caterpillars because what's the hope with all of this technology that we're just imbibing and ingesting and connecting with constantly? You would hope that it isn't just for us to be ever more frenzied and ever more worried about output and just trying to squeeze every last hour of productivity out of every single person. You would hope that these efficiencies, this knowledge that is unlocked, that it'll actually create space, right, for increased human connection, increased understanding and connection with the world around you. And it's one of my favorite lectures to give my team is that, I think as a digital agency, like of course there's a lot of technology we work with. We're working on design and development projects and what have you. But I sometimes like kind of like mockingly will make this motion and I'll say like, like punching the keys on the keyboard. I'm like the era of doing this or wiggling a little device to make, an arrow move around on the screen. I'm like that era is basically over. We're kind of in the halo effect of it.
Hmm.
So we all need to be considering, what does our future look like and what is the essence of what we do? So sorry, this is a really
Yeah,
long-winded
I
answer to a
love
short
it.
question, but
Yeah, that's
you
Great.
know,
great.
but the ultimate for digital transformation for me would be that, right? I just don't want to
Yeah.
get faster and faster at this way of being. I want it to
Right.
unlock new ways of being.
Hmm.
And those new ways of being hopefully are more human and connected.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I couldn't agree more. I think this has been one of the challenges that we uncover on a weekly basis here on the podcast is really that idea that more for less, less, less. And it's like
Mm,
that, and that's one of the challenges that the film production industry has gotten itself into a real pickle. You've got a lot of people are not happy. A lot of people are feeling drained. A lot of studios are their one focus, right, is maximizing shareholder value, right? And all of that plays into what we're still calling sustainability, but we're always keen to explore new ways of talking about sustainability and what that means. And just not to put you on the spot here, but I am, using your background in sort of thinking about digital transformation, and in terms of sustainability and entertainment. How do you see that today, and then where do you see that going? And any advice that you could give to not to us, but also our listeners who are practitioners in this field, and we're trying to figure this out, right? The term sustainability itself has kind of it's just diminished its value. I don't know. There's something about it that we're struggling with to understand. And how do you communicate this to complex communities out there? So that's something that we grapple with every week. Sorry, Zena, you want to say something
No,
before
I mean,
Mo answers?
no, I know it is a messaging thing, and I think we're
Yeah.
grappling with how do we get the awesomeness across? How do we get,
mhm,
this cool factor? Because we've kind of beat it into the ground in terms of like, you know, something we have to do, and like it's an additional thing, and like the sort of climate change is
Yeah. We're all gonna
oppressive,
die.
and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like the possibilities are just amazing if we can get to that sort of, we can transcend this kind of level that we're in right now, and I'm just curious how you might
mhm.
think about it.
Yeah, look, I think Mark, when you were asking that, this is like the $1 trillion question,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
I know.
And so I'm gonna sidestep it just for a second, where you can kind of see it um in people, and you can see it in a lot of different community spaces. And this is where I'm going to sound like a, Government of Canada PSA, but this is why diversity is so important. Because what are we looking for with sustainability? We're looking for healthier ways of being that will allow humanity to exist for a little bit longer, right? I mean, humanity goes away, we know the planet will be fine, right? It might take a few
Yeah.
100,000 years, but the planet will be fine. It'll regenerate completely, new stuff grows, off it
Yep.
goes. So really, we're talking about, it's actually from a selfish place. It's like we're trying to, extend our own ability to survive by creating a better relationship with our environment that's happier and healthier.
Mhm.
And One of the f favorite things I like to see when I drive out to Abbotsford, just an hour east of here, to visit family, every few weekends. My mom lives out there, and I grew up out there. I was born and raised out there. Is when you come into town, there's like these little parks you kind of pass by, in the neighborhoods, and what we refer to as the uncles. I'm kind of getting into that generation myself, but the uncles will be out there, rain or shine, playing cards, right? And these are, they might have been kind of the grandfathers now that immigrated in the 70s or 80s, or they might be like recent immigrants in the last like decade or so, but they come from a place in Punjab that the outdoors isn't some other thing that you do. It's just a part of your lived experience, right? It's like you don't stay cooped up in a room all day, right? So even when they immigrate over here, like vegging on a couch isn't really the norm for them. It's like, why would you ever do that, right?
Hmm.
So even if it's in their own driveway on like, plastic patio furniture, just like watching cars go by and talking to your neighbor, it's like they're outdoors constantly, right?
Hmm.
They're walking everywhere constantly. I think the number one transit users in Abbotsford are probably like, Punjabi senior men and women, right? Like they're on buses
Yeah.
constantly just coming and going because they want to be in public space. They want to be walking to get to places, and those are their modes, right?
Yeah.
And I have such an appreciation for it where I'm like, man, like why don't I walk more, right? And if I'm just at home anyways, why aren't I sitting outside, right?
Yeah.
So there's a diversity in these ways of being where you can see it in front of you, where if I went and tried to lecture anybody in those families and said, because of sustainability, transit, right? And you got to get into nature, they would look at me like an alien, like like we don't understand. What are you talking about, right?
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
when you look at the community, when you look at just their ways of being, it's all there. They're living very, very sustainably already, right? So I think we can actually look to a lot of cultural communities for that sort of stuff. Um, and even like my mom's generation, like the world that they came from, it wasn't the world of, disposable bags and this and that. Like they made all their own clothes, right? In some cases, they made their own furniture, right? So there was like this craft, this handiwork, this appreciation for the longevity of things. And those populations might have been the most sustainable communities in the
Yeah.
world, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so it's really kind of like this Western import that's made a lot of these groups and communities wasteful. But maybe when we're talking about sustainability, we just need to talk to a lot of these communities about kind of reconnecting with themselves and what they already know about what to do.
Hmm. Hmm. It's like it's like instead of looking for that thing, that product, that, external thing, we really need to look at ourselves and be and kind of exercise, I feel like a level of awareness, right? Not only for like our lives or, but the lives around us, people around us, the communities around us. I think that like that's so um it's just such a rich experience when you start noticing things and you can, interact with, that community down the street or whatever, like it's just
Hmm.
it's so it feels I mean, it feels fulfilling to me like to be able to actually get to that, So,
Or it's the I've always said this from day one. It's like 'cause I've moved around quite a bit, showed up in communities that I didn't know anybody. It's like I've this billboard campaign. It's like get to know your neighbor, right?
yeah.
Say hi to your
Just
neighbor,
say hi.
smile at your neighbor, right? It's like just something as easy as that, right? Someone in the elevator, in the street, like even just, on a busy street, just acknowledging someone, maybe a senior, maybe somebody else, a mother walking her, stroller, whatever. You're just like, good morning, right?
Hmm.
Or it's just basic shit,
Basic
like
stuff like
can
this
change the
element of
whole day. Or
kindness.
like I have this visual of like someone going in to rob a store, and you're just like, you're like, oh, good morning, and they're like, well, probably not going to go do that now, but like anyway, that has served me so well, in everywhere I go, the most crazy places. I don't know. So I have that billboard campaign. Get to know
Yeah,
your
no,
neighbor.
Is that your
and
sign?
well, and what you're talking about really is like kind of, starting with your own humanity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what, how would you get to know your neighbor? It wouldn't be by DMing them, right? It wouldn't be,
No.
it'd be face to flesh contact like that.
Yeah.
That's getting to your own
Yeah.
humanity again.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, just with with that thought and what we grapple with in the tech space, like we're kind of in this weird situation, and I don't know. I feel like, you know, how do you think AI can help or not help us with this? Is this like, I mean, we're because we're getting into that. We're getting into that
Hmm.
space where
And
it's just around more and more. And I'm just
Hmm.
curious.
and people are afraid too, right? I mean, you've got
Some are,
entertainment
yeah.
business has been really afraid of it.
Hmm. So there's, it's the there's that sort of indigenous parable of, the two wolves inside you, right? Which one do you feed?
Hmm.
So I feel like AI is kind of like that as well. We have these two wolves, and it can go in a couple of different ways, and it might go in both. Again, if, futures not evenly distributed. One of the most chilling things I saw was this Y Combinator submission. You guys might have seen this. And somebody did this with like no irony whatsoever, but they had basically created this like artificial intelligence monitoring system for essentially sweatshops,
Hmm.
right? Where you have, a factory floor with cubicles set up and people are supposed to be producing items at a certain rate. And Big Brother just sits monitoring the entire facility. And on a grid, it'll show you who are in the greens, who are in the yellows, and if there's some in the reds. And it'll
Wow.
establish patterns over time. And then there's like devices of these cubicles that you can actually speak through. So some floor manager could basically, like Big Brother on your shoulder, just like yell into a cubicle and be like, "Yo, you're in the red. What's going on?" Right? Or you've been in the
Oh
red
my
for so many
God.
days. We need to swap you out. And they built and submitted this thing to Y Combinator with, again, with zero irony, right? And obviously got blasted and flamed for it online because it's like, what the
Yeah.
hell are you doing, right? So there's that side where it'll just continue doubling down on everything that is extractive and violent about capitalism, right?
Hmm.
And then there's the other side where, again, in the agency world, we spend a lot of time writing, corresponding, taking notes, building decks. Like, man, if that all could go away because we handed it
Yeah.
to a thing, right? And we spent most of our time in human connection with people and coming together as a team and doing the what is it, the forming, storming, norming, process of teams coming together. If we were just spending our time on that,
Yeah.
what a pleasure, right? Because now suddenly every client, every new team member we work with, we're just coming together as people
Hmm.
and finding a great human dynamic to go do interesting things and go build things in the world, right? That I think is like the absolute, for me, my industry perspective, like the holy grail potential of this thing comes along and it just takes the mundane away, and
Hmm.
we just get to imagine and create constantly. Wow. And then the worst side is that it comes along and it starts trying to be extractive and trying
And
to maximize the extraction from the human.
yeah. And that's the how our entire system has been sort of created, right? So we're actually it's a byproduct of the
Yeah,
actual
yeah,
creation of the system that we've created,
yeah.
and allowed ourselves to be co-opted essentially by uh, various extremely greedy forces that only look out for themselves. I don't. I think maybe we talked about it on the podcast a little bit, but that's why, like, I mean, I'm just such a fan of the regenerative economy, regenerative communities, regenerative agriculture. I mean, I think that, like, that's where one of the big movements is going to be in the U.S., but in Europe, in North America, and around the world. It's something that's attainable and accessible, but it means reimagining capitalism in a way. And I don't think anybody's saying, hey, look, stock markets suck and capitalism is broken. Let's just do away with capitalism. Like, yeah, some folks say that, but it's not really the case, right? We need to reimagine capitalism and and markets, right? Everything's rigged.
Hmm.
Why not
Hmm.
rig it in favor of humanity? Why not
Hmm.
rig it in favor of communities? So I think that that's like something that
Hmm.
that I'm a big fan of, and I think it's happening in entertainment. We're starting to see it a little bit. Entertainment has a voice out there, right? And we can use this voice for
Huge.
change. And same with marketing, branding, right? And it's messaging, right?
Hmm.
It's all like key messaging. So yeah, I don't know. Your
I
thoughts on
love the
that?
no, I love the way you put that. Like everything's rigged anyways, right? Like you guys remember that documentary of Who Killed the Electric Car,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we lost 40 years there
I know.
probably, and like and battery tech and electric grids and whatnot, right? But yeah, the thing got rigged at the time. And I'm very much a believer in what you're saying because I don't say this as just a purist anti-capitalist, but a lot of what I talk about for sustainability or community or diversity is actually in some regards to kind of save capitalism, right? Because, we have enough human history to understand the pattern of any empire or empirical
Yeah.
forces of how they go from the pioneering period to kind of establishing their sort of influence over an area, and then this kind of point of, the where it's at its peak, it's a point of decadence, um, and then the collapse, right? And if we can say, hey, from the point of decadence, can we find a soft landing?
Yeah.
And rather than full on collapse where
Yeah. Why does it
we
have to be
have,
full on collapse? Like, why does it always go for
yeah,
broke?
yeah. And that's the fear, right? Is that our collapse, especially with the technology, wealth, and power concentrations we exist in this world, that collapse might look like, then a half dozen techno feudalists are kind of reigning over large swaths of humanity. And then we're another century or 2 centuries away from huge revolution to now overthrow them and then go through, hopefully another golden age, and humanity rises up. Like, this is such a cliched pattern at this point. Like, we've got 2,000 years of data
Yeah.
to say,
Yeah.
hey,
More.
we do this, right? We concentrate and we go, oh my God, it's concentrated. Now we have to burn it down. So if we can look at the current sort of concentrations of wealth and power and find a soft landing for it, that is through, diversity, sustainability, a more holistic approach to our own humanity.
Yeah.
And that's sorry, to just bring it full circle back to the AI question. I think that's the different ingredient we have this time around, right? Is that we've externalized so much knowledge that maybe that can actually exist in partnership with us to figure this thing out. I don't know, but that would be the hope, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I haven't heard anyone put it quite like that, to exist in partnership with us. Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm gonna have to think about that a little bit as I think through the AI.
Yeah, me too. I
Um,
think I've just ruined my whole day. This is all I'm going to think about today. Oh God.
oh
Oh
man,
God. How do we
it
how do we
just
do this?
makes me like, I mean, just
It's
ponder like,
it's our human destiny. So I mean that's James Lovelock. I've referenced it on this podcast before. James Lovelock wrote a book called The Nova Scene. And he was 100 years old when he wrote it, and it was about our emergence with AI as our collective human destiny. And I really like his positive look and viewpoint on it. And that's a quick read. And so
He
I
wrote the
think,
book at 100?
yeah, at 100 years old, he was the guy who came up with the Gaia hypothesis, right? As Mother Nature being one,
Oh,
or one
wow.
oneness of the
Okay.
planet. And in his reflection before his death, he writes this book called The Nova Scene. And but it's just along the same lines of what we're saying here. It's just like it's we have to look at it like we actually don't have the skills ourselves right now. We've shown this, right? At 2,000 years of stuff to go to the next level. So
Mhm.
actually need to use AI and other sort of more intelligent forms of I don't know what it is, intelligent forms of technology to help us.
Mhm. Yeah, it's the potential is for it to be a great mirror.
Yeah, I love it.
mhm.
Oh, Mo, this has been great. Great chat. Great
Great
chat.
chat. I know. I know. Touched a lot of topics, and
I tend to do
hopefully.
that. I tend to touch a lot of topics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And, gives folks, I mean, stuff to think about, right? To really, like, these are all things that we could spend days talking about, right? I love that. I love that. I'm going to be thinking about it for a while. So thank you very
Yeah.
much for
Thanks,
joining
Mo.
us on our podcast. And gosh, look forward to following your work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where can folks find you, hear about what you're working on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can search for me online. It's just Mo Dhaliwal, and Skyrocket Digital is my agency. And yeah, those are basically the places. And then I'm having the great honor of talking to a lot of interesting people actually on our podcast as well, on High
Yeah.
Agency Podcast. So search that out.
Awesome.
Well, thank you again so much for the invite. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mo.
All right, guys.
Our designer is Aaliyah Kane. Music is by Peter Chapman. Social media is by Picnic Social. Our producer is Colin Miller.